Hey, you're here. So I think we'll start now. I'm Chris DT Gordon. Thank you for being here for the 113th episode of Scar Bearers. I like to switch things up a little bit in how I say things. I greatly appreciate you being here with me today. And as always, with me, you can't see them, but you know they're there. They're kind of like the FBI, but don't report me. It's Nate and Britton Barron. If you want them to work on your technological projects, please reach out to them at Nate Barron. Well, folks, it is summer, around the summertime months when you are watching this. It should be around June if I plan things correctly. But that doesn't mean that the struggles our young people are facing have gone away. Sure, if they're facing things at school, that might lessen a bit, but they have still many, many struggles that they need our help with. And so if you know that they can benefit from an increased amount of gratitude, positivity, and resilience, please reach out to me at chrisdtgordon.com so we can start a conversation where tag, the attitude of gratitude, right up there, right there, can help them with those skills. So please reach out to me at chrisdtgordon.com so we can increase their gratitude, positivity, and resilience. Well, I am happy to have we've known each other for a little while, Kelly, but this is the first time really talking in a more in-depth fashion. My friend Kelly Falardeau. How are you, Kelly?
I'm great. Thank you, Chris. So great to be here with you.
Same here. Same here. Now, you and I have known each other for a little while, Kelly, through Corey Poirier, through his Blue Talks network.
That's right.
And so how did you first connect with Corey?
Well, Corey and I first connected because I wanted to do a TEDx talk. Mm-hmm. And, I'd already been a speaker, but I just, and I always knew that being on the TEDx stage was something I wanted to do, but I just didn't feel I was ready for it. But then one day I just said, you know what, that's it. I want to do a TEDx talk. Met a girl who was friends with Corey, who knew that Corey was putting on his TEDx program. Mm-hmm. And so she introduced me to Corey and I took his program. And within like a few hours of taking his program and implementing his steps, I landed a TEDx stage.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Within a few hours.
Yeah, within a few hours.
Wow, yeah. That's pretty phenomenal. That's something you don't hear about every day.
It is, I know. And in 4 months, I had landed 2 TEDx talks.
Wow.
Just by following his strategies. So it was awesome.
That is phenomenal. That's fantastic. I'm still looking for my first. So I'm hoping I'm going to keep throwing those lines out. Yeah.
So you'll get there.
So as you said, you're a speaker, as am I. And we both became speakers because of some great, as I call it, origin story that we faced in our lives. However, your origin story happened to you much earlier in life than mine did. Please share that with us.
Yeah, you're right. So basically I was 2 years old and we lived on a farm at the time, and my cousins were throwing shingles in the fire and a spark came out, landed on my dress, and I ended up with scars to 75% of my body.
Wow.
And yeah, so I was in and out of the hospitals every 2 years until I was 20 years old because they needed me to grow so that they'd have more skin to work with.
Mm. So now I'm guessing you had to get skin grafts to cover those burn areas, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, just before our show, I was thinking about some of my skin grafts that I had. When I was about 5 years old, what happened was my mouth was, the scarring around my mouth made my mouth stay open. So I couldn't open and close my mouth. Mm. And so they actually took skin from my stomach and put it on my chin so that I'd be able to open and close my mouth. So that was one of my surgeries that I had at 5 years old.
Wow. So again, they took the skin from your stomach, from the outer part of your stomach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did a skin graft. Well, basically what happened is, fortunately, when I was burned, and it's not,
that's an odd way to start a sentence.
Yeah. But what happened is, because I was 2, I was wearing a wet diaper. And they
Mm-hmm.
say that that wet diaper actually saved my life because it
Wow.
stopped the flames, right? It stopped the
Mm-hmm.
flames from going all the way down my body. And so the skin that was on my stomach was the only natural skin that my doctor hadn't touched. And he was
Oh,
leaving that for my face because he wanted to be able to have good skin for my face. Whereas on my legs, that skin has been used 6 times over on both of my legs.
wow.
So when I was 2, they would take the skin off my legs, they'd put it on other parts of my body that needed skin grafts, and then they would let it heal. And then when there was more skin there, they would harvest that, take another layer of skin, and then put it on my, other parts of my body that needed it.
Oh man.
And so, and then, yeah, and all the way up till I was 20 years old, every 2 years, I would go back for more skin grafts or reconstructive surgery. I've had tissue expanders in my neck here.
Mm.
Um, and they actually put a tissue expander here, and they stretched out my skin to be able to move it up so that I wouldn't have so much bad scarring like I have around here.
Mm-hmm.
So they've done tons and tons of surgery on me.
Wow. I'm not sure how many people can can empathize with you. I know I certainly can, but I went through a month and a half of skin harvesting surgeries, and I just remember that was awful, especially trying to sleep at night because my harvest areas in my back were healing. And I remember one time I leaned back, I had some taken off the back of my thighs, and I just leaned back, and the slightest touch on my leg sent me screaming. And I'm 40 years old at that time. I cannot fathom what it was like to be a 5-year-old and in growing up like that. Wow. What you know how was the support with your family going through
Well, my
this?
family support was incredible. I still remember actually my grandma telling me a story, and a lady had said to her, "You take her out in public?" And my grandma said, they're just scars. She's our
Mm-hmm.
granddaughter. We love her. Of course we take her out in public,
Mm-hmm.
right? My family never let my scars stop me. So it didn't matter if I wanted to join the cheerleading team. My family let me. What I wanted to ride horses, I got to do it. Like, it didn't really matter. I wanted to join the choir, I did it. My family just did not let me quit just because I had scars on my body.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, of course, it was challenging
Yes.
because I was stared at, I was teased, I was shunned. I was like, my family didn't know about all that because, of course, I hid it. But yeah, absolutely, it wasn't fun growing up being the ugly Scarface girl. Right?
No.
I never thought I'd ever get married or have kids, and fortunately, I did. Um, but yeah, it's been a challenge.
Wow. So, besides your family's support and their 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 adamant belief that you will have the most normal life possible, what helped you get through those tough days when you weren't sharing how you were being bullied?
Well, I'm really fortunate in that, I grew up in an age where there wasn't an internet.
Oh,
And, I
yeah.
mean, in one side it was, in other side it wasn't. I mean, on one side it would have been great to know other people like me so that I could talk to them. On the other side, because I didn't have social media, I wasn't bombarded with negative messages as I was growing up. Like, I know nowadays teenagers, they don't know how to turn their phones off. And so they're constantly being bullied 24 hours a day. So for me, I was always planning my future. I
Mm.
was always, daydreaming about what my life would look like and who I would marry or what he would look like. And, there was times when I didn't think I'd get married, but then there was times when I would just pretend I would be,
Mhm.
right? Not always believing that I would, but I never ever did believe I would have kids. I just thought because of my scars and my body that it wasn't possible for a burn survivor to have kids. So it wasn't until I met another burn survivor, her name was Cindy, And she's like, what do you mean you can't have kids? And I'm like, well, I don't think I can. She goes, well, I have kids and I've got scars on the same places as you. And that girl has, kids, and that girl has kids, because we were at a burn survivor conference. So for me, a lot of it was just kind of always visualizing and fantasizing about what my life could look like.
Okay. So, when did you meet those people? Because it seems like when you're talking about having kids, it must have been later on, maybe after high school.
Totally. I actually didn't meet my first burn survivor till I was about 18 years old. And I was completely freaked out because he looked so different from me. And I just thought, well, everybody's going to look like me, right? Mm-hmm. His scars were so different than mine were. And so I was quite shocked when I saw him. And plus, he was like completely burnt on his face. He fell asleep with a cigarette in his hand.
Oh, no.
And the house exploded. And that was how he got burned. Yeah. So, wow. Yeah, exactly. And so when I was 20 is when I met the man that became my husband, and now I'm divorced. But yeah, I mean, it took a long time. Like, it just wasn't something that happened overnight. It was something that it's been a gradual process.
Yeah.
Gradual, where I learned to love who I am and loved what my scars, stood for. Right?
Yeah. I think that is a huge lesson that anyone can, anyone should take from this, is that it doesn't matter, people who haven't had skin grafts or haven't had burned suffer through that as well. And so I think that's, it's beautiful what you're saying, is that, no matter what your physical scars look like, emotional scars take a while to heal too. And, we all have them, but I think that is a great equalizer. I do want to go back to something that you, it's not something you said, but something I'm imagining, being a skin graft recipient myself. How much feeling do you have in those areas where you have skin grafts?
I still have feeling, although this is really funny. So if I touch underneath my armpit here, I actually feel it in my elbow.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna try that now. Not so much. I feel blunt pressure, but I really have to press hard, really get in there to really feel something.
Well, the reason that I believe it happened is because when I was 2, my arm joined my body.
Oh, okay.
And down to my elbow, and I could only move my arm like this.
Okay.
So I couldn't move my arm like this because it was joined to my body. So when I was 3 years old, they took me back to the hospital and they had to slice me open, my arm open, and then they put skin grafts here and then on my body so that I could lift my arm up. So I have a feeling that because my arm joined my body, that maybe the nerve ending somehow got it. Did some funky thing going on there, right? I don't know. I can't explain it.
I mean, that tracks. I think that makes sense. When mine were removed, that was taken just straight off my skin. And so, and then they just had to place the skin grafts right on there. So on most of my skin graft sites, I have very little feeling.
Oh, so, yeah, no, I still have lots of feeling on my donor site.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. One memory I have is when my son and I went sledding and we hit some bumps and I didn't feel anything. I don't hardly any nerve endings here. I got home, took off my sweatshirt, hit my elbow. Why is my elbow wet? I had blood all over my hand because my elbow had bled. I cut my elbow open.
Oh no! And you had no feeling there.
So I had no feeling. I just felt the dull pressure of my son because he was on my back. Son coming down on me and like, all right, woohoo! And get home later. Oh yeah, I've been bleeding for 5 hours.
Oh no!
So yeah, so the yin and yang of nerve endings, or not having nerve endings. So
right.
No, that's really interesting that your skin grafts, because of the way that you were injured, are different than mine were. So yeah, I always thought that,
Yeah.
when you get skin grafts, that area is, you have those removed. I guess you didn't have the tissue underneath removed. You just
Well,
had it
and
covering, right?
it could have been because I was 2 when I got burnt.
Yep.
So I've had my whole life,
Yeah.
right? So the nerve endings probably grew,
Okay.
right? Whereas you got burnt as an adult,
Yeah.
and so that's different, right? Like my scars are 53 years old,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm
Yeah, I can see
55
that.
now. So
Mhm.
I can see that, my body probably already healed in a different way than yours has.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. So when you you're an adult now, you're starting to meet people who have also been burned and getting this information. At what point do you decide, you know what, I'm going to write a book?
Well, here's how that happened. um, 11 years ago, when I first became a speaker, is when my speaking coach said to me, Kel, now that you're a speaker, you also need to be an author. And the
Okay.
reason being is so that when people ask you to speak for free, you've got a product to sell. Also, because if you get asked to speak for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, and people want to know more about your story, then they can buy your book and learn more. And then the third reason you need a book is when you're a speaker is because you get more credibility than the speaker who doesn't have a book.
Hmm.
And it makes you
Yes.
look more like the expert. So it wasn't that I wanted to write a book because of my scars. It was more because I wanted to advance my speaking career.
Okay. Now I'm going to step back a bit and then now ask the question I should have asked before. Why did you decide, and when did you decide to become a speaker?
So, it's interesting because when I was about 13 years old, I was in 4-H. We had got horses. And so one of the things you have to do when you're in 4-H is a public speech.
Hmm.
And so they have a competition and you have to do a 5-minute speech and then you get to advance on. Well, I did my first speech and I actually won and then had to go on to the provincials, which was pretty cool. I didn't win then, but I was already a speaker when I was like 13 years old.
Hmm.
And then when I was 21, I became the president of the Alberta Burn Rehab Society. And so then I had to do speaking there. But it wasn't until about 11 years ago when I met Charmaine Hammond at a woman's event. And Charmaine said, Kel, you need to sell that business you're in, because I had a different business at the time, and you need to be a speaker. And I said, I'm a burn survivor, so what? And she said, no, people will be so inspired by your story. So she said, you need to be a speaker. And at that point in my life, I was in, a really toxic marriage. I had a dead end job. I had a business that was bankrupting us. Like I didn't see myself as being inspirational. So I didn't understand her. I was like, I think you're full of it. Like I'm not a speaker, right? Like I'm not inspirational. Like I'm a loser right now, right? That's how I felt. And she's like, no, people will be inspired. And so she got her and I to speak at an event and we did like an Ellen show. And so she was Ellen and I was the guest. And, and then that was the start of it. And then I hired a speaking coach and away I went.
Hmm.
And I really started to actually embrace my scars and then more so embrace my story.
Okay.
It's because you can use your story and, like a lot, there's burn survivors out there that do not like, they see themselves as a victim.
Hmm.
And I saw myself as a survivor. And I thought, you know what? I can play the victim card and say, poor me. I got burned. I'm never going to get married, never going to have kids. I'm never going to have a beautiful life. I'm never going to be the beautiful girl. Or I can take my gifts and I can see the beauty in it. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to say, you know what? Yes, I have scars on my body. And yes, some people might think they're ugly, but other people think they're beautiful. And I think I'm beautiful too. And so I'm going to take my story and I'm going to make something of it. And I'm going to help people to realize that your scars are your gift, not your tragedy.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree, obviously, because that's the reason why I also became a speaker. But I feel that when you stand up in front of a crowd and you show them, hey, this is me, this is all of me, you know, and you may not accept it, but I do, that it really does fill people, some more than others, with the belief that if, you know, if this person can say this about themselves and they might look like X, then I can say this about myself when I look like Y.
Exactly.
How, you know, I guess, what are one or two of the most memorable responses you have received as, you know, from a speaking presentation?
Oh, one of the most beautiful ones is when I spoke to a group of teenagers. They're 4-H kids, actually. So this was their club week. So they were anywhere from 16 to 20 years old. And so I'm sharing my story. And one of the things that I always do is I allow people to text me their questions while I'm speaking. And I love that because it allows me to answer the questions while I'm speaking. And then I know what direction to take my speech in. And so I got this text message from a young guy, and it said, please don't acknowledge me because I'm the one in the back with the glasses on, and I don't want anybody to see that I'm crying. But I've been wanting to commit suicide.
Mm.
Thank you for your speech. You make me want to live.
That's beautiful.
It is. And when I got that text message, I was like, wow, this is why I do what I do.
So you received the message while you were speaking? Did you give your phone did you give your phone number out at the beginning of the speech?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have a little stand that has my number, or I'll have a PowerPoint presentation that has my number on it. And I encourage people to text me while I'm speaking. And throughout my speech, I'll check for messages, and I'll just say, hey, okay, let's see if there's any questions. And then I'll check for text messages and then I'll answer them while I'm speaking. I do that for my presentations for schools. In fact, at the schools, I actually encourage them to bring their cell phones, whereas a lot of schools don't embrace cell phones. I do. So I actually tell the principal or the teacher, and I say, hey, can you have your students bring their cell phone? Because I want them to be able to text me. One time I did I did a presentation, I got something like 1,000 text messages.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Hopefully you have the plan to support that.
Oh yeah.
Wow. You know,
I get unlimited texting.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. You know, I actually have a presentation tomorrow, you know, as of this recording. And so I'm thinking, okay, I wonder if I can get a message up to that principal to see if they can, you know, what their policy is. And I'm afraid of changing my plan now, but that is something to definitely keep in mind.
Oh, you can do it right on the spot, right?
Yeah.
Because you can even ask the teachers that you're speaking for and just say, hey, tell the students it's okay to bring their cell phone. And the kids don't abuse it. So don't worry about that, because a lot of times people say, oh, they're going to abuse it and they're going to be texting you all the time and all that. They don't. They're very respectful that way. So so I just have a PowerPoint, have my number on it, text your questions, and they do. And I'll tell you another reason to do it. Most kids are too scared to stand up in front of all their friends and the other, non-friends, and ask questions because they're worried about being judged.
Yeah.
And so this gives them a really safe and anonymous way to ask a question. It's a beautiful way of doing it. You're gonna get some silly stuff. Like I got people saying, how many kids do you have? How old are your kids? Are you married? I want to marry you. And there's different things like that. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That is a brilliant way to get the audience engaged in a safe manner.
It is.
So that alone, I thank you, Kelly. But I'm still going to ask more questions here.
For sure.
So so you became a speaker, then you became an author, but you've gone further than that with the publishing world. Can you please share that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So what was happening is a lot of people were asking me how to write a book, right? Because I wrote my first book, 10 years ago. And so people were asking me about it. And then they said, well, can we take you for coffee and for dinner so we can learn from you? And, I became a best-selling author. And so I just started coaching people and putting on workshops. And then when COVID hit, I lost all my speaking gigs. And then that's when I decided, okay, what am I going to do? I guess I'm going to do this book thing. And so these last 2 years have been my best years ever.
Wow.
So yeah, so now I coach people to write their books, get them published, and then, become best-selling authors.
So what's the name of your publishing business?
Woodhouse Publishing.
Woodhouse Publishing. And what's the Woodhouse refer to?
Well, Woodhouse is my maiden name.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
I keep contemplating about going back to my maiden name. And so I just thought, okay, Falardeau is too hard for people to pronounce and remember, and they can't spell it. Woodhouse is nice and easy. So I thought, yeah, why not do Woodhouse Publishing? And that's so much easier.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. So what is coming up in the near future for you, Kelly?
Well, right now, again, I'm still doing the book publishing. The other thing is I'm starting a whole new movement called Ugly is Always Beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that's actually an NFT collection with a matching t-shirt. And actually, I can show you the picture. Yeah. This is the NFT.
Okay, so for those podcast listeners, she's showing me a picture of a girl with pink hair and pigtails. And it says a t-shirt that says ugly and spelled out as an acrostic. And what does that acrostic say? I can't really see that.
It says, so the acronym stands for the unique, gorgeous, lovable you is always beautiful.
Yeah, acronym, not acrostic. I'm sorry. The acronym is ugly. Yep. Unique, gorgeous, lovely.
Lovable you.
Lovable you. Awesome.
Yeah, and it's based on my TEDx talk, which is called Ugly is Still Beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what, it's time to take that to a whole different level and create a movement around that. Excellent. And so that's what I want to do, is help, young people and, men and women who want to feel more beautiful and know that they are loved, and that you don't have to be flawless or perfect in order to be beautiful or loved.
I totally agree with that. And so I greatly thank you for that, Kelly. Where can people reach out to you if they're interested with your speaking engagements, with your book publishing, or with your Ugly is Still Beautiful movement?
So they can, and actually I have a free gift for your listeners. So if they want to learn how to publish a book, so I have a blueprint on how to publish a book in 7 easy steps. And that is www.7stepsauthor.com. Okay. And if they want to learn more about my NFT, they can go to bit.ly/, what is it again? Oh yeah, Ugly Launch, LAUNCH. Okay. And then of course I can go to my regular website, which is kellyfalardeau.com.
Excellent. And so Kelly, I like to ask people, what is something that maybe in hindsight you are thankful for that maybe at the time you thought was a curse or something that you just had to deal with in your life?
I think there's two things. Of course, definitely me getting burnt. When I look at it as a teenager, definitely I wouldn't have wanted it to happen, right? But as an adult, I see it as a blessing. So definitely.
And why is that?
Because none of all this amazing stuff would have happened if I didn't get burnt. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I can, talk to people and say, yes, I do love myself, even with the scars on my body. If I didn't have scars on my body, I wouldn't be able to say that. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a lot of, people out there that say that, but when you see someone like me who actually faces it every day, like I still get stared at. Mm-hmm. I still get shunned. I still get people not wanting to be around me because they don't know what my scars are. And so I still deal with it on a daily basis.
Yeah, I've had kids swim away from me when I'm at the pool. And of course, I take it a joke and I say, stay away from the pool filter, kids. So. But I love your answer, Kelly. I totally agree with it. And I'm so happy that you have taken the reins of your life in this way, and you've inspired so many people with your speaking, with your book publishing, and now with this movement. And so before I bid you adieu, which I feel like I have to say because you are Canadian, By the way, which province of Canada do you live?
I'm in Alberta. So I'm
Alberta.
far west. Yeah.
Okay. So one more question I do have.
Sure.
What is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh my gosh, my favorite dinosaur. And I forgot that you were going to ask me that. And the T-Rex.
And why T-Rex?
I think because he's really strong and powerful.
Okay.
Right?
Excellent.
And I think we need that power sometimes to help us power through life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I definitely agree. So Kelly, thank you again so much for joining me. I know we had some obstacles keeping us apart, but I'm glad we were actually able to connect in this way.
You bet. Thank you. And I'm very honored to be on your show. And make sure you let me know how your speech goes tomorrow.
I certainly will. Thank you. And folks, please reach out to Kelly if you're interested in her speaking journey, her book publishing, or her Ugly is Still Beautiful movement. If you want to reach out to me to ask about TAG and find out how the attitude of gratitude can benefit you and increase your gratitude, positivity, and resilience, you can reach me at chrisdtgordon.com. By the way, Kelly's information is going to be in the show notes below, so check that out as well. And you can also go to my website and find that What is Your Favorite Dinosaur t-shirt at my merch store, Chris DT Gordon's Tag and Pop Shop. Well, folks, as always, I thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to like, subscribe to this podcast, share these messages out, because these messages don't do any good if no one hears or watches them. So please help me out in that regard. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Please have a great day. And remember to pass on perfection and go for greatness.